Okay. Om Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janamani Shavilasa Mahamoho Graha Graseika Karmani Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punaha Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vivagini Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Daksh. I'm muted, so there's a problem. I hope now you're being able to listen to me, and I have shared the page of the book that we are doing. We will start from this sloka number 67. What are we discussing? We are discussing about how this whole diverse, multi-layered reality that we engage with in our everyday life is real in a very limited sense. It's not being refuted as unreal. It's being refuted as unreal from the standpoint of an ultimate reality on which everything else kind of plays away. It plays out on that particular platform. Now, the examples which a Vedantin keeps giving to us is like this. You are watching, for example, a horror movie, and then you watch a comedy, a romantic comedy, and then you watch a sports event, and you're sitting in a film hall. So there are three, four movies. There's a film festival going on, and you watch these movies, and you realize in course of time, what are you looking at is essentially the film screen. That is the fundamental reality. The realities which touch your senses, with which you engage, are not absolutely what you would like to call reality. They are phenomenally there because you are being able to see them with your eyes and ears, and you are listening to the sounds and the pictures, everything you are accepting. But these are kind of relative truths, they are not absolute truths. Having kept that in our view, we're going to discuss these slokas because some of these slokas may be a little repetitive. The explanation for a bit of repetition in Vedanta, like in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan keeps telling about the nature of the pure self in so many slokas. He talks about how to practice detachment in so many slokas. Why? These are hard to accept, hard to understand, hard to practice. So the Vedantic texts try to hammer this fundamental truth down into our consciousness through repetition in order to encourage us to meditate on it, analyze it, and enter into the truth. Not in a very intellectual sense only, but first make sense of it using your cognitive tools and skills, and then meditate on the truth and try and engage with it. Try to understand what exactly is the secret in this particular statement. That is how they are trying to help. So, एवं श्रुति विचारात प्राग यथा सदवस्तु यदवस्तु भासते विचारेण विपर्येति ततः तच्चिन्त्यतां वियत. So the akasha now is a phenomenal reality. It's not being rejected, dismissed as unreal, but this is essentially a superimposition on the Brahman. The pure isness is without a name and a form. There are a few technical terms we will deal with today, and you'd be reminded of our discussions in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, the sloka number 16 in the second chapter. Na bhavo vidyate sataha, na sato vidyate bhavaha. Uh, so, if something is asat, it will never have existence, and something which is real can never be non existent. नाभो नाभावो विद्यते न अभाव विद्यते सतः नासतो vidyate bhavaha na asataha vidyate bhavaha. Bhagavan says, and a lot of people believe that in fact is the crux of whole of Bhagavad Gita from the Advaita Vedanta standpoint. And that is what we are discussing in so many slokas today. Because as I was telling you yesterday, if we, in say mathematics, you remember how our teachers were training us, they will try to hammer into us the basic understanding of what is sine, what is cosine, what is right. These are the basic things. Using geometry, they will try to prove it because they know once this boy understands these basics, he'll start making progress. I don't have to run after him, he'll be on his own. Similarly, akasa is the first level of manifestation of Brahman, space, the first level of manifestation, because without space nothing else is possible. And out of space comes air, then out of that comes fire, out of fire comes water, and out of water comes earth. And then this whole diverse multi-layered reality can be made sense of, and we can get into different paths and we can do the deductions and inferences ourselves, provided we first make good understanding of how the Brahman suddenly assumes names and forms, how the Nirvikara, Nishkala, Nirguna Brahman becomes Sakara, Shaguna, and the manifest reality has qualities, has names, and we attribute a lot of things. Like Avakasa Dharma, that is what is attributed to the Akasha. The ability to give space or room, it's a room giving quality. The hand can move from here to there because there's no obstruction. That is the room giving quality. Avakasa space and other things can coexist. You can't have this hand in this particular set of these coordinates and have the other hand exactly the same coordinates. The space doesn't contradict the existence of this hand at any particular coordinate. That's not a problem. That's why it's avakasatmaka. He's saying a lot of things actually appear to be real at the first instance. And then when you get deeper into it, all of us have done it while doing some basic science in school, it appears like that. And then you analyze, oh, okay, it's not like that. That I understand. Okay. Vicharena viparjeti tataha tat chintyatam vyat. So before vichara, you have one understanding, a kind of a naive, presumptuous understanding. And that is what all of us have about samsara, about life. And then we have so many beautiful messages sent in the social media. Our elders guide us and say, what appears may not be true. Appearance is not reality. In so many words, we keep reading it. And how that happens, niruktam vivechanaritim vibrunati vinnaiti. Yesterday we had done it. We'll just have a little look at it before we graduate to the next sloka. Vinne biyasati savda भेदाद बुद्धेश भेदतः वायव्यादिस्वनवृत्तं सन् न तु व्योमेति मेधति. If he's first will have a comparison. How much did you score in the examination? Remember our childhood. All the time being emotionally tortured and made to believe our mothers, our parents. So how much did you score? This much. And what did Mantu, Pitu, whosoever is in the neighborhood who has scored a little more than you? How much he studies a day? I have a cricket match. Okay. Your friend Bittu, is he going for the match? No, he's studying. The mother knows. And then she will exactly take the name of that guy. Therefore, he's saying the guy who is a real jnani, who sort of opens up his ability to reflect on the reality, he has no confusion. He knows that this akasa is a manifest reality, is not the ultimate reality. That is what this shloka says. Bhinne biyat sati. Now, when akasa is different from the Brahman, sati bhinne, savda vedad buddhesya vedataha. First, you have savda veda. One you are referring to as Brahman, the other one you are referring to as akasha. And there are so many discussions in philosophy as to what is theory of meaning, why do we have so many words. Now, in our tradition, nobody talks about it. There were great philosophers who discuss about the science of language much before you had linguistic philosophy in the West. The science of language and the theories of meaning, a lot of theories, right? And one of these theories will say that if there is a sarvata prabriti, what is the trigger for using a word? If it's one truth or one fact that you are trying to describe, you need not have two words. There must be some description, there must be some attribute, some quality, some aspect that you want to emphasize. Therefore, you need another word. You cannot necessarily say, I need two words to describe the one and the same thing. That will be superfluous. Because there's a lot of theory as to why language is used, and if it's used in what sense, and how do we make sense of the words. Do we make sense of the sentences as a whole, or we make sense of words and then combine them and have the understanding of the whole sentence? There's a lot of discussion. Okay? So one is avidanvayavada, and that's all part of Indian literary theory. You first understand the meaning of the words and then do you anvaya, avidanvayavada. The other one is anvita vidhana. First you look at these, and the other theory is that no, words per se don't mean anything. You have to look at the contextuality, which is more important. So if you're having a sentence, the sentence gives you meaning, not the individual meaning of words. You put them together, the sentence may mean completely different from what is intended to be meant by the speaker of that particular. Kindly mute yourselves, whoever it is. So, so these are okay. Who is there anyone who is not muted? I think all of you are. So, coming back to the discussion that I was saying, bhinne vyasati savada bhedat buddheshchu vedata. So you have the words and buddhi. What is behind the use of the word? There is a subjective reality which is constructed in our minds. So obviously they are also different. Vaivyadishu anivrittam sat. Now, what is anivritti and vyavriti? That is the technical word that I was trying to discuss today. Anvaya and vyatireka. In Sanskrit, they use this word. Mrit sattve ghada sattvam. If clay is there, you can have a pot. Without clay, can you have a pot? No. Tada sattve tadabhavaha. If it's not there, if A is there, it leads to B. If A isn't there and B isn't there, then you can say that there is anivritti of A and B may or may not be there. Like, for example, golden necklace, gold will be there. Golden chain, gold is there. Golden bracelet, gold is there. That is anivritti. And vyavriti, the necklace and these things appear and don't appear. What appears is gold in all of this. Anvaya and vyatireka. Why do you do it? He's saying in the commentary in the sloka number 16 in Bhagavad Gita, Sankaracharya explains it at great lengths. He said that asti thing, astita, that is anavritta everywhere. There is a pot, this is a man, this is a woman, this is a king, this is a country, this is physics, this is chemistry, this is love, this is hatred. In all of this, what is anavritta? Is. All of it, you first have to assume their being, their existence. Then can you talk about the specificities? The specifics may or may not be present. What is universal in all this? That isness. And what the Vedanta is talking about. That isness in the absolute sense is what we identify with Brahman. And without that isness, nothing can be. Remember, they have a very logical point there. Without that isness, no sentence is possible about existence. Like in mathematics, you have a truth proposition. So X exists such that X is not. You cannot say this. You cannot say that. That will be contradictory. X is Y, X is Z, whatever you want to have a formulation. Fine. But first, X has to exist. Otherwise, other things are not possible. And that's the beautiful logical point he's going to make today in one of the slokas. So first you have Akasha, then you have Vayu, then you have fire, Agni, and then you have Jala, Rasha, and then finally you have Prithvi, which is Gandha. So these are the Tanmatras. So in the series, so this is the top causal, real cause of all the causes is the Brahman. Then below comes Akasha, the first layer of manifestation. Out of Akasha comes the atmosphere, air. Out of that comes fire. Out of that comes water. Out of that comes earth. But all of it, you say, there is, sky is, air is, fire is, water is, earth is. What is there? Anivritta is. Vaibhadishya anivrittam sat, not to vyoma. Now it's very interesting because Akasha gets further modified into air, and air further modified into fire, fire into water, and water into earth. So there'll be some discussion on Panchikarana. It's a very interesting Indian standpoint on ontology or the cosmology and how it evolves. How these Panchabhutas intermingle with each other, and elements of 1/8 of every Panchabhuta is present in the other one. So any particular Panchabhuta you're talking about will have 50% of its own Swarupa, and then you have 12.5% of the other four. That is the Panchikarana. We have discussed it earlier. It will come again. Now here, what he's trying to say is, the view, this is Akasha, this is water. When you're saying this is water, Akasha is there, are you talking about Akasha? No. So there is Vyabrati. It may or may not appear. What is the universal? What is all the time there is that isness. And by isness, what are we referring to? That Brahman. That is the omnipresence of God that we talk about in common day language. Because why God is omnipresent? God is a particular articulation of that nameless, formless reality called the Brahman. With Maya Upadhi, that magical power, he becomes God. Becomes a creator, controller, regulator God. But with the Maya Upadhi, but when you drop all superimpositions and Upadhis, what you have is that pure consciousness without any name and form. And that is Anibritta. That's what he's trying to, Vaibhadyasya Anibrittam Sat. Natu Vyoma iti bhedadhihi. The Buddhiman guy, the intelligent guy, is able to make this distinction. There is the Brahman which pervades everything, and the other things have their limited domain of pervasiveness, limited domain of their existence, their influence, their manifestation. So it's like, you have phase change, like energy we studied. So similarly, so you have change in layers, and they are mutually exclusive. What is not mutually exclusive is that Chaitanya, for example, that we have done it already in the first chapter. Imagine that we are in the waking state, and then we enter into the dream state, and then we enter into the sleeping susupti stage, the karanavastha. If you look at this particular three stages, what is common to all of this is that consciousness. The consciousness, when it is connected with the external reality through the jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, you call it jagrata avastha. Now, the music playing, that's a great song, but you are sleeping. You are not being able to listen to it. That is not jagrata avastha, because both the things are there. You have the ears, pair of ears, perfect sound, and then you have that beautiful music playing out, but you are not responding because there's no connection. So when you have Jnanendriya and Vishaya Sanyoga, that is Jagrata Avastha. And then you have Swapna Avastha, where internally you are creating reality without making use of your Jnanendriyas. You're watching a cricket match lying on your bed. The cricket ball is you, the match is you, the ground is you, everything that you see is you. It's your creation. You're the God there. What is common there? The consciousness is there. But many of the features of the Jagrata Avastha are not available in the dream or the Swapna Avastha, and the Swapna Avastha things are not available in the deep sleep state, because you are in that, you remember that deep sleep where you have, they say that the waves are like gamma rays, alpha, beta, and gamma rays, and what kind of waves are radiated within your brain. In that state, You have a level of equanimity where ahankar is not there, mind is absolutely not working. So if the jnanendriyas and the karmendriyas are asleep during the dream state, but in the deep sleep state, even the mind, mana, is active in dream. That's how you have emotions experienced. But in the deep sleep state, you are not experiencing anything. But you remember that I had a wonderful sleep, and that is the proof of the fact that there was an experiencer, and that is your that Pratyak Chaitanya, the consciousness was there. Who else verifies that you had a wonderful sleep? That is what the question Vedanta asks. Similarly, the Brahman is all pervading, and the other Panchabhutas have limited spheres of existence, and the guy who has understood it has a clear analytical mind which is able to bifurcate, trifurcate, distinguish different words and what they are referring to, and knows ultimately as the Brahman. The dualities and diversities are useful in my everyday life. I'm going to make use of it, but they are not fundamentally, ultimately real. Akasa satyedi pratidikam dharma dharmi bhavam vihaya sato dharma akasha iti purvoktam siddhantam yukta saditi. Now, the critical thing was dharma dharmi bhava. Akasa is dharmi. Dharma cannot exist without a dharmi. There's a girl who is a beautiful singer, okay? Beautiful. I'm not referring to her body, I'm referring to her tonality, the sound quality, her rendition of the music. She's a great musician, wonderful singer. Now, what happens is that ability to sing, the singerness, right? The gaiki cannot exist without the girl, without the gayaka. So dharmi is a precondition for existence of any dharma. So dharma is dependent on the dharmi. Dharma lies in the dharmi. Akasha is a dharma, an attribution, which we superimpose on the Brahman. But then we say there is Akasha. Akasha, Satta, Dharmavan. That's what the Nyayayika says. Satta is a universal quality which sort of precedes Dravya, Guna, and Karma. Is there Dravya and Guna and Karma? These are some universals. But Satta, easiness, is a far subtler, superior universal. That's what the Nyayayika philosophers, great logicians, that's what they say. And the Vedanti makes fun of it, and then he says, Akasa is not Satta Dharmavan. It is the Satta which has Akasa Dharma, because Akasa is a superimposition. It's not real per se. Okay. Therefore, he is saying, how do you know which is dharmi and what is dharma? How do you know what is primary and what is secondary? How do I actually know? He's saying, I'll explain to you. Sadbhastwadhika vrittitvad dharmi vyomnastu dharmata dhiya satah prathakare brihi vyomo kimatmakam. It looks like cream, and then there is a re. These are all printing errors. Sadvastu adhika vrittitvat. Sadvastu pervades and covers more area. In fact, it's universal. It's all pervading. Vasudeva, the word is created how? Vishu Praveshane. It enters everywhere. There's no way where, that's why, they say, why Jagannath doesn't have hands and legs? Yeah, but where will he go if he has hands? Can he move his hands anywhere? Where he's not there? And where shall he go with his legs? To go anywhere, there should be a location which is different from your location, isn't it? X and Y, these are 2 points. So you have, or say, let's say, so you have X1, Y1, and then you have X2, Y2. These are 2 locations. So this was P1, that is P2. So P1 to P2, you're going to move. So that exists independent of you. Now, the interesting thing about Jagannathji, the word as such, is all pervading. He's non-local. There's not a place where he doesn't exist. So where does he go? To go, there has to be an arena, a space, a location where you are not there. But he's everywhere. That's how Jagannathji doesn't have any legs. It's a deep philosophical stuff. Of course, there are certain mythical stories that the guy who was making the deities, they opened the door and then he hadn't completed. He was Vishwakarma himself. These are the mythological ways of trying to explain a certain illogical looking picture or cultural symbol. But there's a deeper philosophical sense. Apadapani yavano grahita. That's what the Upanishads say. Apadapani. He doesn't have hands and legs. Yavano grahita. He moves everywhere and he takes papa punya and rewards you and punishes you. He doesn't have ears and he listens. He doesn't have eyes. You have to, like, because he's Nitya Sakshi. That's why Jagannath has those two round ears. These are all very deeply symbolic iconography. If you reflect on it, there are Upanishadic insights that you will lead yourself towards. Here he's saying, Sadavastu adhiga vrittitva dharmi. That Brahman is adhiga vritti, it's everywhere. Vyomnastu dharmata. Why? Nyuna vrittitva. So there's one, India is bigger than, let's say, Bengal or Orissa or Andhra. Why? India has larger space. These are states limited to few areas. Then you look at Earth, yeah, bigger than any particular continent or any country. The Brahman is all-pervading, exists everywhere. It's non-local, and therefore, sadavastu adhika vrittitvat dharmi. What about sky? Dharmata. It is a certain attribute which we impose because of that iteretara adhyasa in Vedanta. Mutual superimpositions. Dhiya satah prathakare. Now, if you are trying to say that no, akasa is also an independent reality, why are you trying to manipulate me to accept that akasa is a superimposition? It's just an appearance. Why so? It is an independent reality. I'm a nyayayika. He says, okay, bruhi bhyomoho kimatmakam. What rupa of the Brahma, Vyoma, Akasha? Let's discuss that then. You must be able to convince me how Akasha has its own Swarupa independent of the Brahman, independent of that Satta Dharma. You should be able to explain it. Look at the commentary, because there is where these are the Tikakaras. This is Kalyana Piyusha Vakya, where he captures the philosophical nuances of this particular very cryptic sloka. Sadavastu adhiga vrittitvad adhiga desa vrittitvad. Adhiga vrittitvad means what? He's saying, no, I'm just talking about space. Adhiga desa vrittitvad dharmi bhavati is the one which is actually the fulcrum, the platform which the dharma plays out. Vyomnastu of Vyomna, nyuna desha vrittitva dharmata. Because the akasa is a dharma, not a dharmi. Why? Because it actually captures limited. But you say, but space is also infinite. Well, the Vedanta says, no, space is not infinite. If there's anything truly infinite, is that pure consciousness. Time and space, smart physicists these days are also telling you, and these are all conceptions and constructions. They are not fundamentally real. These are all constructions. Dharmasya dharma vrittitaya dharmitoho dharminaha adhigadesa vrittitvam dharmasya nyuna vrittitvam cha loke samanyataha drishtam. This tika, this purna virama has to be kind of, it's a error. It shouldn't be there. Dharmasya dharmi vrittitaya. Because dharma will stay in dharmi. Dharminaha adhigadesha vrittitvam. So anger stays in a human being. Can the anger exist outside of a particular human being? No. You know, these guys who are trying to counsel us how to get rid of your anxieties and fears, they always say fear is a ghost who walks in the mind. It cannot walk around in the garden. What are you talking about? Fear is real. Where does it live? Except in our thoughts. Nyunadesha. Dharma is less important than dharmi. Dharminaha adhigadesha vrittitvam dharmasya nyudesha vrittitvam. It has limited pervasiveness. So loke samanyatah drishtam, that we see naturally, commonsensically. Evam prakriti. Prakriti means prakarane. In the context in which we are discussing this, adhigadesha vrittehe sati dharmitvam nyunadesha vrittehe akasasya dharmatvam cha nishayam. How do you ascertain? Akasa is an inferior reality. What precedes Akasha, the sky, is Brahman. Why? Because that has adhika desha vritti, this has nyuna desha vritti. Tatu tad vaiparityena. And the Nyayikas are confusing. Satta dharma exists in Akasha. A little confused, guys. That's what they're saying. They're great logicians. Loke vaiparityena vyavaharastu vastu tattva anabodha mulaka iti cha bodhyam. But there are some people who believe the Akasha is real, the sky is real. What's your problem? He's saying, look, I have no problem. You have to understand one thing. This is anabodha mulakam, not ababodha mulakam. It's not based on correct understanding. It's a prejudice. It's a faulty understanding. Give me an example. Plenty. Because we all believed sun and the moon, everything moves around the earth. Earth is flat. So many prejudices. There's a beautiful word I read somewhere. Do you know much of what we consider to be right or wrong, good or evil, what we give a lot of value to, including extreme nationalism or rightist kind of an ideology or leftist kind of ideology? All these powerful ideologies are, in a way, if you look deeply into it, are shared delusions. Because we are not using our analytical reasoning to find out what is true, what is false. We're using emotional reasoning. We are confusing our feelings to be logically drawn conclusions. And that's how you remember, I remember my student days. So there'll be a boy and he likes a girl. Oh, bahut achhi hai. She's a wonderful human being and blah, blah, blah. And then she doesn't respond to him or ignores. And then you know what kind of words that guy will use against her. She is very cruel, insensitive, shellfish, matlavi, gold digger, anything he will say. What happened there? And here's logic for both the conclusions. What kind of logic? Emotional reasoning. There's nothing real about it. And when to some kind of emotional reasoning, we have in what is called a shared delusion. They're saying anavabodha mulakam. This belief that Akasha is real, the sky is real, is out of a kind of a faulty reasoning, and the Vedanti is trying to persuade us for our own benefit, saying, why can't you look a little more closely? Why do you get satisfied with this level of logic? Anavabodha mulaka iti cha bodhyam evam dharma dharmi bhave sthite dhya sada prathakare. And then if you say, no, Akasha has independent reality and existence and I can show it to you, you say, okay, fine, not a problem. Prathakare sataha dharmi mritasya vivechane dharmi bhutasya. Again, printing, very confusing. Dharmi bhutasya vivechane dharmasya dharma vyatirekena. Dharmi vyatirekena. Can you have a necklace without gold? You can go to a shop. Gold has become very costly, isn't it? And you say, I want to buy a golden necklace. Don't say golden necklace. You say, I want a necklace for my daughter's marriage or my niece's marriage. I want to give her a gift. And he would say, okay, sir, what's your budget and how many grams? You say, no, what's the grams? I'm not interested. Just give me a good necklace. Big one? Yeah. But how many grams? Do you have a budget? How are you going to make the payment? Things are very costly. We say, no, I'm not interested in gold. And he says, okay, sir, thank you. Go elsewhere. This is a place where you buy gold and also pay the making charges for the necklace. Necklace cannot exist independent of gold. Any manifest reality cannot exist independent of the Brahman, because that is the substratum, the platform, the foundation for all other layers of realities to emerge and make sense to us. Therefore, he's saying, dharmi bhutasya vivesana dharmasya dharma vyatirekena, dharmi vyatirekena. Without this Brahman, without the dharmi, avartanad, it cannot exist. Vyoma kimatmakam bruhi, tell me, what is the swatantra swabhava of Akasha? What is the independent attribute of Akasha? King Shorupam avatishtate iti bada. Explain. And then he comes back with a counter question. Nanu akasat sadbuddhehe prithak karnantaram api avakasatatmaka shurupena Akasu vidyate evaiti prativadivado asangata ityaha. Now just imagine, we have this dialogical way of discussing everything. A lot of people say democracy is a Western concept, it is here. You must tell them, please go look at the text. Why do we have a dialogue everywhere? In Greece are democracy because they had a dialogical tradition. Look at this tradition. If you go back, you look at the Upanishads, and there's always a dialogue between one person who speaks. There's no final truth. It's a very open-ended question because there's a tradition where there's more importance given to reflection and introspection instead of having a kind of a revealed religion and you have to accept it. But Shruti Pramana is accepted. Where there's a lot of debate which is allowed on what the Shruti Vakyas, the statements, mean. And then there's a lot of dogfight among the philosophers. They're all loyal to the Vedas and there's a lot of fight between them. Now he's saying, if you're saying that Akasa is different from Brahman and it has an independent reality or existence, then you must be able to explain to me Prithakarnantaram, when you have this analytical distinction, api avakasatmaka swarupena. He says, I can take it away from Brahman and then that avakasatmaka swarupa is there. You are asking, kimatmakam, what is the swarupa? Avasatmakam. It gives that room-giving nature is the swarupa of akash, of space. If I say, how do you respond to it? Therefore, the answer is like this to that. Avakasatmakam tached asat taditi chintyatam bhinnam sato asatcha niti vakhi vyahriti stava. Now you see, this is the powerful truth. You cannot have a necklace without gold. You cannot have any specific reality without that easiness. That is what is being explained to us here. Avakasatmakam tat ched. If you say akasha avakasatmaka swarupa, room-giving nature, then he's saying, look, what are you saying? Akasa is different from being or sat. Mind your language, my boy. That's what the Vedanta is saying. You are saying it's different from sat. Did you say that? Yes, I did. Different from Brahman, you're saying. Don't play around. By Brahman, I mean sat. Now, yes, I said Akasa is different from sat, so the Brahman. Okay, then what does it become? If it's different from X, it becomes non-X. It's Y, Akasha, and Y is non-X. Do you know what is X? It's not a particular, it's a universal. It's the universal of universals. And then it is asat. So first, the moment you say it's different from Brahman, that means it's different from Sat, it becomes asat. Now, in order to have any Swarupa, any quality, first it has to exist. But you are saying it's different from Brahman. It's illogical, my dear. Why didn't you make sense of it? So you cannot make sense of it because you are not realizing that you are contradicting yourself. Avasatmakam tat ched asat tad iti chintyatam. You have to admit, you accept. That becomes asat. You're saying different from sat is what? Asat. Bhinnam sato asatcha. Now he will say, but what about you, my dear? Do you accept this whole sansar is same as Brahman? You also have a lot of theories. You're saying Brahma Satya, Jagana Mithya. You want mukti from sansara. Sansara is confusion. You also say that sansara is Brahman. And why are you singularly, like we are fighting with the Americans? Why do you have tariff on us? Putin said that you're also getting uranium from us. What's the problem if India imports oil from us? So you Vedantins also draw a distinction between Brahman and Sansara. This reality is not the absolute truth, different from absolute truth. That's what you say. And just a while ago, you tried to explain that, you tried to do good analytical understanding, saying the Brahman is the superlative thing, and then you have Akas and other layers of reality. The Vedanti smiles. He's saying, yeah. Bhinnam sataha asatcha na iti vakhi ched vyahirti stava. He's saying first he will say and he will explain in the next verse that I'm saying, I got no problem. Why? Because the Vedanta smiles. He's a very intelligent guy, very cunning guy. He would say, it's, I said, this sansara, the mayatmaka sansara, is neither sat nor asat. Neither completely asat. Why? Because if there is nothing, how do you say it's a snake? But it's not a rope. Therefore, it's neither sat nor asat. It's all is going to be explained now. Then he's saying, Bachasaha vyahatihi parashvara virodha. If you say it's different, and then you say it is different, but it's not asat, it exists, you're contradicting yourself, because first you said it's different from sat. It has to be asat. If it's not X, it has to be non-X. Then you cannot say Y exists with these qualities. The moment you say Y has these qualities, the word has includes isness. Sat is isness. So you are contradicting yourself. Nanu vyahatiriti uktya sadasat vilakshanam mithya bhuta bhutastu angikar kartrinam nayam vyaghata iti suchyate. He's saying, I got no problem. Don't argue with me. I also do the distinction. I do the distinction, but how do I refer to sansara? It's anirvachaniya. It's neither real nor unreal. It's just a manifest reality. It's vyavaharika satya, phenomenal reality. I'm not saying it's absolutely, I'm not a Shunyavadi. I'm saying it's a phenomenal reality. Therefore, he moves forward. Avakasatmaka akasha asannapi katham bhasati iti asankhya bhati. Then he's saying, sir, I have another problem. You are saying akasa is not ultimately real. Now, yes, I'm saying akasa or sky is not ultimately real. Only Brahman is. And you would find this question by all the materialists, especially people of science. Oh, really? This is what your Vedanta says? What about the physics? We are doing all this. You think we are fools? The Vedanta has a different kind of an answer to that. Bhati ched bhatu nama bhushanam mai kasyatat sadbhasamanam tan mithya sopna gajadivat. He says, I got no problem. What is this? Why the sansara appears? Why the sansara appears is real before our eyes. Bhati iti ched. If you are saying akasa appears before my eyes, I can take pictures, I can discuss about it. Bhatu nama bhushana mai kasyatat. Let it appear. What's your problem? That is what is Maya. That is how what doesn't exist appears is existing. Yad asad bhasamanam. Yad paramarthatah asad. Ultimately doesn't exist. Bhasamanam. But it appears. Tana mithya. That is what I refer to as mithya. I don't refer to mithya as something which is tuchya, like Sasavishana, Bandhya Putra, Bandhyadi. A barren woman has a son. Who are you? I'm the son of a barren woman. Mama Juha Nasti. I don't have a tongue. How do you speak? They are mutually contradictory. You cannot have a Bandhya Putra because if the lady has a son, she's no more a Bandhya. Either she can have a Bandhya or she can be Putravati. She cannot be both. Right? Sasavishana, horns of a rabbit. No, rabbit's horns. Doesn't exist. Sansara is not like that. Sansara exists, doesn't exist ultimately. It's anirvachaniya. Very hard to capture in words. He's saying, similarly, yad asad bhasamanam taramithya. Give me an example, sir. You're saying what is not real but appears. I use the technical word mithya to describe it, which is not completely false. It's not real. Give me an example which appears but is not real. What is the Vedanti's answer? The Vedanti says, Swapna Gajadivat. My dear, have you seen these big elephants in your dream? And you are in a small dormitory. You are on a bunk bed. There's no space even for a soft toy elephant. You see an African elephant. Swapna Gajadivat. You can see a lion or a snake. You can see an anaconda. You can have a fight with a big elephant and kill it in the dream. Is it real or unreal? Did you see it? There must be something real. You wake up from your dream and you're sweating and you have high pulse rate or heart rate because you see something very funny. Was that real? Why are you scared? So this reality is like that. Avakasatmaka akashaha satak karna anandaramapi. Even if you have analytical distinction drawn, bhati iti bhakshyasi chet, if you say, but it still appears, it's different from Brahman, it's not fundamentally real. Why does it appear? Let it appear. Kintu tadbhanam mayikasya maya karyasya bhushanam alankarameva. That is the beauty of Maya. That is the speciality of Maya, the game. Sad asad vastu maru marichika eva avidyamanamapi maru marichika. You see that, that's what we all the time do in the beginning, in the primary school physics books or science books. We have the mirage, looks like a body of water. And you think, oh, if you are a sailor, you say it's a lovely water path, I can go and cross and go to my country. No, it's a desert. Marichika iva vidyamanapi vidyamanamiva. It appears as if it actually exists. Bhasamanam tata swapna gajadivat. And then the elephants that you see in your dream, mithya matrameva. This is only just an appearance, not fundamentally real. And then let's graduate to the next sloka. Niyamena sahaupalabhyamana yoho katham bheda siddhi iti chodyam parakiya anubhava pradarsanena pariharati jati iti. He says, I will tell you, the Vedanti is not opposed to analytical distinctions. It is opposed to fundamental sense distinctions. There is no real reality in this diversity. But there is reality, and we need to have very sharp to be able to distinguish the Brahman from everything else. This is all pervading and not visible to us. Avang manashugocha, very difficult to know either through language or through using your mind. No, it's not possible. What do I do? He's saying, look at the Upanishadic statements, look at the insightful, cryptic, philosophical statements. What is an inkling that you're getting? There's certain indication. Try to meditate on it. And then you will have Swarupanuvati, Swarupa Anushandhana. That's what we are supposed to do. Explore yourself. Now the question is, when Akasha and Sadavastu are saying, I got no problem. Okay, let me accept that also exists. Not a problem. So niyamena sahaupalabhamana yoho, two things are there. And they are appearing, but they are appearing as one. But they are different. How do I accept it? How do you say that Akasha is not Brahman? Can you show me Brahman without Akasha? Can you show me Brahman without all this that I see? You say Brahman is everywhere. Where is Brahman? Everywhere. Show me. Can you show me gold without necklace? You can. But Brahman is not a vastu. It's not a material entity that you can show. That is the problem. That's why this whole discussion about Vedanta, some people laugh. What does Vedanta do? What is that Brahman doing? It has no attributes, no qualities, not going to help us. At least if I'm a, Dvaita Vedanti, if I'm a Vaishnava, like a Iskanite, I at least love Lord Krishna, or I have love for Devi or Jesus or Allah or something. There's a personal God, and He's going to protect me. Bible says this, Quran says this, Bhagavad Gita says, Bhagavatam says this. Your Advaita Vedanta says that He's Nirguna Nirakara. How is He going to help me? Who's going to help me when I'm heartbroken, I have disease, or I have mental problems or pain? He cannot even talk to you. He doesn't have any indriyas. What's the use of understanding this Brahman? And you're saying that we get liberated. The Vedanti smiles, doesn't say a word, because Vedanta is essentially saying that once you understand the secret about the existence, then you loosen your hands on your life, you open up your mind towards the reality you experience. There is a certain ineffable happiness and equanimity with which you move through samsara without being affected by it. And that is the beauty of it. That is the Jivanamukti Avastha. Ultimately, you don't come back. Why? To come back, you have to have Papa Punya. And if you want your Ahankara, there is no Papa, no Punya, because for Papa Punya to be real, there has to be an agency, and you don't accept the agency. You are beyond the individual. How do you come back? Then There is Sadhya Mukti. You are liberated here. That's why a lot of people find it interesting. But then it all depends on what kind of an attitude we have at a cognitive level. That's why Shastra says, now balahinena labhya. It's not meant for the weak. It's not meant for emotional people. You do bhakti and everything. But Vedanta requires a bit of cognitive sharpness. It's meant for little intellectually oriented people who are very sharp-minded and able to think. They're not the ones who would like to have mridangam and cymbals and jump around and be happy. That's not bad. That also is fine. But then ultimately, you need to have that mind which is, is kind of become that state of self-luminosity. That doesn't happen. You can emotionally manipulate your mind to experience different kinds of things. But the pure awareness that you reach there through meditation. And only two schools of thought say that. The Buddhists and the Advaita Vedantists, that you need to have that wisdom-oriented sadhana. So let's look at the analysis that he's trying to say. How do you say that is possible to have an analytical distinction and then meditate on the Brahman? Because you cannot show me Brahman different from what appears as a manifest reality. The answer is like this. Jati vyakti dehi deho gunadrabhye yatha prathak biya sato sati vastu parthakyam kotra vishmaya. Jati and Vyakti. Jati is that Samanya, the universal. Vyakti is that particular, the specific entity. Now, I'm a human being, you are a human being, all of us are human beings. The humanness, humanity, so to say, is there in all of us. Manushyatva and all the Vyaktis. Vyakti here is not a human being. Vyakti means a particular. So you have that general quality which is there in this Jati Vyakti. Can you separate them? Necklace and gold cannot be separated. Manushya and Manushyatva cannot be separated. Dehi, Deha, Dehu, this is Dvanda Samasa, therefore Dehi is the Jivatma. Deha he has. Can you distinguish it? Whenever you may patla ho gaya, the Vedanta says that is a adhyasa. You cannot be thin or fat. The self cannot be thin or fat. The body becomes thin or fat, but then you have itereta adhyasa. You have dehatma buddhi, confusing the body as yourself. You're not your body. So deha deho guna dravye. So a sweet potato, sweetness of the potato, they're not separate. This is one thing. Yatha prathak dive, they are different. Byas satoho tathe vastu. For the time being, why don't you see, this is adhyaropa. This is an intermediate level of and explanation. Finally, all will be rejected. We'll be going to a higher level of understanding about what is Brahman. Byas sator tatha eva astu. Why did you understand that you should also be able to distinguish the Avandara Satyas, intermediate level realities, from the Brahman? Parthakyam kotra vishmayaha, that particulated exists. What is surprising about it? You have experienced that in everyday life. Yatha jati vyakti. Jati, what is jati? What is samanya? Nityam ekam aneka anugatam. That is the definition of what is samanya or universal. What is it? Nityam. It's a universal. It's nitya. It's always there. Cows die. Cowness doesn't die. Plato is the guy who also talks about it. Ideal types. You see, cowness doesn't die. Humanness doesn't die. Human beings die. So that is a nityam ekam, and humanness is one thing. Aneka anugatam, aneka sarira anugatam. That humanness resides in different human beings. Samanyam, that is the definition of what is samanyam. Iti lakshana lakhita. Yatha anekeshu vidyamano gutva dharmaha. That cowness exists in so many cows, so many animals called the cows. Vyaktihi dharmi go. What is the dharmi? That cow. Deha deho jivatma, and this manushyatva and everything, the body. Dehi jivaha. The person who has a deha is a dehi. Dehi is the jivatma. Tasya asraya deha. And the atma stays where? In this body. Biya satur akasasya dharmitaya pratiyamanasya Sadvastunascha tatha eva parthakyamastu. Similarly, this akasa is actually is there. The Brahman is manifesting through certain name and form as Akasha. Let them appear as one. What is the problem? You have everyday examples. You cannot separate cowness from the cow. Similarly, what is the problem if you fail to distinguish in a commonsensical sense Akasha from Brahman? Why Akasha? So much of emphasis, I told you, because that's the first level of manifestation. Kotra Vishmaya, what is surprising about it? Yadyapi bhedo buddhyate, even though this analytical distinction is able, we are able to comprehend, tathapi sa buddhire, nishyaiti kasam siddhyati, that particular understanding that Akasa is different from Brahman, Brahman is all pervading, Akasa, even though it appears as an universal reality, is though, because why so much emphasis on Akasa? Because Akasa is always compared with Brahman because of its near enough all pervasiveness, but it's not Brahman. Akasa is Jada. Brahman is Chaitanya Swarupa, it's consciousness. Akasa doesn't have consciousness. But in Vedanta, everything has consciousness. Even atoms and electrons and subatomic particles, all of them are consciousness. These are modifications of consciousness, therefore they have to be conscious. Depends on how deeply, how well, how clearly they are visible, that we divide the whole cosmos into animate and inanimate realities. Everything have consciousness in Vedanta, because nothing can exist without consciousness. Therefore, he's saying, Buddhi Nishchayatmika iti kasam siddhati. How do you have this Akash and Brahman are different, and Brahman is the all-pervasive reality? How do you say that with certainty? How do you ascertain it? Iti sankade. Buddhopi buddhopi bhedano chitte nirudhim jati tettada anekagriya sangsayadava rudhya bhavosyate vada. Now he's saying, I'm not being able to convince myself, sir, that there is something called Brahman which is beyond everything and it exists and I cannot see it. I feel confused, perturbed. I unnecessarily came to this Vedanta class. I was happy going to Hanumanji's temple. I was happy going to, looking at the picture of Shirdi Sai Baba and doing puja. These are all fine, I tell you, because the Vedanta embraces all, because these are layers of sadhana. Bhakti is one layer, Karma Yoga is another, Yoga is another level. Ultimately, of course, you have Jnana Yoga. Everything kind of ends and dissolves in Jnana Yoga. That the sadhana, Jnana Yoga is what? Wisdom sadhana. The teacher is answering like this: you are not being able to convince yourself. Find out the faults. What are the weaknesses you have to find out? Why you are not being able to convince yourself? Okay, he's doing an analysis of the student. Buddhopi vedano chitte nirudim jati ted. If you are not being able to convince yourself, listen to me. Anekagrya sansayad. But first find out, is it because of anekagra? Ekagra means what? Eka agra vishishta. You have sharp single pointedness and you have 20 things running around in your mind. How do you focus your mind on the Brahman? Sansayadva, you have some doubts about Brahman. What appears is not real and what doesn't appear is real. You must be playing fool with me. So is it inability to concentrate, or is it you are full of doubt? Rudya bhavo pasya tevada. This lack of conviction in you is because of what to? Because he'll give you medicine accordingly. Is it ekagrata dosha? You have lack of concentration, he'll give you some exercises. And then if you say I have sansaya dosha, he'll give you another set of medicines. He's now doing diagnosis. Akasa satora bheda uktaritya buddhopi sahitukam avagatopi chitti nirudim dradyam no jati. I know it, sir, I heard you. Still not able to convince myself. Na apnoti iti ched. If that is the story, is that what is going to happen to you? Tan nishchitatva bhave. You are not being able to fully convince yourself. You don't have that nishchayatmika buddhi, vyavasayatmika buddhi. Ko iti vikalpyate. There could be two reasons. Anekagryad iti. First cause is inability to focus your mind. Asya ridhya bhavaha means dradhyata bhavaha. your inability to make yourself convinced about it. Katham bhaved anaikayat, because of your, it's like a scattered brain. So how do you meditate on the Brahman and get the solution? Agram Vishaya Pravanata Jasya Tad Ekagram. Who is a guy who has got an Ekagra mind? He's very focused. There's a beautiful book called Focus. It was a bestseller about 10 years back. You don't have focus. How do you talk about Vedanta? You can't even do your office work well. So Vishaya Pravanata Jasya Tad Ekagram Tasya Bhava Ekagryam. What is the nature of that particular state? That is called Ekagrata. And tanna bhavati iti anekagryam. When you are unable to focus, then you're without focus. You are scatterbrained. Tasya chitta vikshepad uta sansayad vishwasa bhavat. Either inability to focus or you don't have any faith. That's sansayatma vinishati. There's no respite for that kind of a guy. So